everyone, and welcome to this explainer. For all of you in the Rich Mind, Rich Life audience, I am absolutely thrilled you're tuning in today because we are kicking off a true masterclass. We're going to completely unpack what it actually takes to build a life of absolute abundance, purpose, and real financial success. Today's explainer uniquely combines two insanely powerful forces: the defensive psychological discipline of the legendary investor Charlie Munger and the aggressive offensive wealth-building habits of the visionary Elon Musk. By mastering both the defense and the offense, you're going to learn exactly how to forge the ultimate millionaire mindset. But look, before we start building that empire, we have to face a pretty staggering reality. 90%. Did you know that 90% of investors actually lose money? It's wild, right? And it's not because they aren't smart enough or because they don't have the fanciest spreadsheets. They lose money because of impulsive emotional mistakes. We're talking about decisions driven entirely by fear and greed. Decisions that might feel totally justified in the heat of the moment, but end up completely devastating their portfolios over the long run. Okay, let's dive into this because that is literally the multi-million-dollar question, right? If 90% of people are falling into this emotional trap, how do we make sure we are in that top 10% who don't? Well, to do that, we have to fundamentally rewire our entire approach to money. We can't just look at the numbers. We've got to look deep into our own minds. All right, part one, the shield. Charlie Munger's emotional discipline. To build an empire, we first have to plug the holes in our own minds. Legendary investor Charlie Munger deeply understood this. He famously noted that it isn't raw intelligence that guarantees success, it's emotional discipline. Basically, before you can conquer the market, you must conquer yourself. So let's look at the specific traps he identifies, starting with herd mentality. Have you ever bought a stock or an asset just because, everyone at the office or everyone on Twitter was hyping it up? Yeah, that is herd mentality in action. Munger warns us that just because the crowd is running fast in one direction, it doesn't mean they're heading anywhere good. In fact, he actively looks for opportunities that everyone else is ignoring precisely because the crowd is so often dead wrong. Then, there's loss aversion. This is a massive wealth destroyer. It's that paralyzing, knot-in-your-stomach fear of losing money that makes you panic and sell your assets the second the market takes a temporary dip. By focusing entirely on those scary short-term losses, instead of trusting the intrinsic long-term potential of what you actually own, you are essentially just locking in your own failure. So, beyond herd mentality and loss aversion, Munger outlines 3 more fatal emotional mistakes to watch out for. There's confirmation bias, where we only look for information that proves we're right and totally ignore the glowing red flags. There's overconfidence, thinking we know way more than we actually do instead of just staying humble. And finally, impulsivity, making fast, unthinking decisions instead of having the patience to wait for the perfect pitch. Real financial success requires strict, unyielding emotional discipline against all 5 of these traps. Which brings us to section 2. The power of inverse thinking. This is Munger's most powerful technique for dodging those fatal traps. I absolutely love this philosophy. Munger famously said, "Tell me where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there." It sounds a little morbid, sure, but it is pure genius. This is the absolute core of inverse thinking. Instead of trying to be incredibly brilliant all the time, Munger just tries his hardest to avoid being incredibly stupid. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how this inverse mindset flips our entire natural thought process completely upside down. The standard mindset always asks, how can I make money in the market? But the inverse mindset asks, what could make me lose money? By identifying the things that guarantee failure, things like excessive debt, questionable management, or a terrible business model, and simply avoiding them, you naturally clear the path to success. You find the best opportunities literally by identifying the worst ones and running in the opposite direction. Let me give you Munger's most famous example of this, Coca-Cola. When he was evaluating Coca-Cola, Munger didn't just sit there and ask what could go right. He aggressively asked what could go wrong. He tried to find a reason why this globally dominant company, with its incredibly simple, highly profitable model, would ever fail. And you know what? He couldn't find one. It had a lasting competitive advantage. Because he couldn't find a reason it would die, he knew it was an incredibly safe place to park and grow his wealth. All right, let's pivot to section 3, the sword. Elon Musk's 5 wealth-building habits. We are shifting our energy right now from defensive psychology to a dynamic, forward-looking offense. Look, Elon Musk wasn't just born a billionaire. He built his empire through strict, repeatable habits, specifically focusing on long-term goals, reinvesting profits, continuous learning, calculated risk tolerance, and simplicity and frugality. Notice the beautiful symmetry here? Munger gave us 5 defensive rules to protect our wealth as a shield, and now Musk gives us 5 offensive strategies as a sword to aggressively build it. Let's break these down. Musk's first habit is all about vision. While most people out there are desperately chasing quick, immediate wins, Musk prioritizes decades-long visions. Think about colonizing Mars or revolutionizing global solar energy. He isn't sweating the quarterly profit margins. He's entirely focused on building a legacy. For you, this means defining exactly where you want to be in 10 or 20 years and making decisions today that align with that distant horizon. The second habit is reinvesting profits. Musk turned Tesla and SpaceX into absolute giants because he understands one fundamental truth. True growth comes from reinvestment, not consumption. Instead of blowing his early earnings on, a fleet of luxury cars or crazy lifestyle inflation, he poured every cent back into the mission. For us, this means taking a portion of our income and actively reinvesting it, whether that's in education to learn a new skill, funding a side hustle, or buying income-generating assets like real estate or index funds. Habit number 3 is continuous learning. And look at this, 1 hour. That's it. Musk is famously self-taught in physics and rocket engineering, literally just from reading books. If you dedicate a single hour a day to learning something new, whether that's reading a solid finance book, taking an online course, or studying expert analysis, you will fundamentally transform your financial decisions and your skill set over the course of just 1 year. Knowledge is literally the one investment that always pays out. Then we have habit 4, risk tolerance. Remember when everyone laughed at Musk for pouring all his early money into SpaceX and Tesla? Why did he do it? Because he knows that without risk, there is zero reward. But, and this is a huge but, it must be a calculated risk. It's not just a blind bet at a Vegas casino. It is an informed decision based on relentless research. Stepping out of your comfort zone is absolutely necessary to create wealth, as long as you've done your homework first. And finally, the 5th habit, simplicity and frugality. Despite his astronomical wealth, Musk is known for maintaining a relatively simple lifestyle so he can keep his capital totally focused on his projects. So the crucial takeaway here is this. By actively avoiding unnecessary luxuries and visual distractions in your own life, you free up massive amounts of capital and mental energy to invest in your true goals and your own personal fulfillment. Let's move to section 4 and see how this builds your millionaire mindset. We have our defense and we have our offense. Now let's synthesize these 2 brilliant minds. And this brilliantly illustrates the whole picture. Just look at how perfectly Munger's defensive psychology directly supports Musk's aggressive wealth-building habits to create the ultimate millionaire mindset. Munger's extreme patience gives you the stomach to hold on to Musk's long-term vision. Munger's inverse thinking ensures that Musk's risks are actually calculated. Emotional discipline fuels continuous learning. Knowing your limits protects your reinvested profits, and avoiding impulsivity is the absolute foundation of simplicity and frugality. Guys, they are literally 2 halves of the exact same coin. Because at the end of the day, wealth isn't just about money. It is about building a life of true abundance through highly disciplined habits. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. Which of these habits are you going to adopt today to completely transform your tomorrow? Building real wealth starts with these smallest steps, taken with the right mindset. So don't wait around. Pick just one habit from the sword or the shield and start applying it right now. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and honestly, I cannot wait to see the empire you build.